To keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, it's 1 o'clock on Sunday the 15th of June and a very, very happy Father's Day to you all. This is the weekend on GB News. Your main stories this hour. The Prime Minister U-turns on grooming gangs. A national inquiry will be launched into the abuse scandal. This comes after Sir Keir Starmer described calls for the inquiry as jumping on a far-right bandwagon earlier this year.
And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Well, we now have cautious optimism from survivors, their families and campaigners right across the country as they finally get a judge-led national statutory inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. Will there finally be the justice and accountability that they are desperate for?
And tensions soar as RAF jets are deployed to the Middle East amid fears of an all-out war. It comes as multiple casualties have been reported in Israel in the latest wave of ballistic missile strikes from Iran.
Bombing Iran! Stop bombing Gaza!
Yes, and pro-Palestine protesters marched through London yesterday chanting "Stop bombing Iran" with large crowds gathered in Parliament Square waving Palestinian and Iranian flags. But given Iran is threatening strikes on the UK, is this just ignorance in action? And a rare military parade marking the US Army's 250th anniversary took place in Washington yesterday on Donald Trump's 79th birthday, who said it was a big day and admitted we want to show off a little bit.
The sort of pornography that people might have been used to in the 1980s. We're talking about extreme violent acts, degrading acts against women in pornography.
And Labour MP Jessa Sato has spoken exclusively to GB News in yet another unmissable interview with our very own Gloria De Piero. Stay tuned to find out how she's trying to tackle the ever-growing threat of exploitative online pornography. And yeah, as I said earlier, happy Father's Day. All of us have at GB News want to celebrate with all the dads out there today. And if, like me, you are missing your dad hugely, my thoughts are with you as well. Later on in the programme, we'll be looking into why a father figure can be essential to the development of identity and self-worth. Yeah, so yeah, happy Father's Day. I'm Dawn Newsom and this is The Weekend. So thank you so much for your company on this incredibly special day. Obviously, it's one of those days where if you haven't got a dad, and I haven't had mine for 28 years now, and I miss him every single day. So if you are feeling lonely and you had a very good dad, just be grateful that you had him in your life for the amount of time you did. And if you are celebrating, hope you're having a lovely time. And remember, if you're out and about, you can take us on your radio and you can sneak a peek at your laptop or your phone as well. I'm sure Dad wouldn't mind. Because this show is all about you and your dads today. So let us know what you think about everything we're talking about, or just have a chat about your dad. I don't mind. It's a Sunday, who cares? It's really easy to get involved. Just go to gbnews.com/yoursay and join in our conversation. But before we get stuck into today's stories on a packed show, let's get those latest news headlines from San Francisco.
Very good afternoon to you. The top story this lunchtime. Breaking news, do not travel to Israel under any circumstances. That is the message from the UK government this hour. The Foreign Office has now updated its advice to warn against all travel to Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, saying the situation is moving fast and dangerous. Foreign Secretary David Lammy says the safety of British nationals is the government's top priority. Well, it comes after Israel and Iran exchanged more fire overnight, and the UK announced RAF jets are being sent to the region as a precaution. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves says that doesn't, though, mean the UK is at war, but hasn't ruled out supporting Israel in the future. Iran has warned that the UK, US and French bases could be targeted if they help to defend Israel. Meanwhile, the G7 summit in Canada is now being overshadowed by that escalating conflict in the Middle East. Leaders had planned to focus on trade, energy, security and Russia's war in Ukraine. But Israel's strikes on Iran are now centre stage. Sir Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron have called for restraint. But Japan has condemned Israel's actions, while President Donald Trump has praised them. Well, our political editor Chris Hope is in Canada for us at the G7 summit, and he says there appears to be deep divisions among leaders there.
The G7 in Canada is all back to the world stage. He said overnight to us that Canada is an independent and sovereign country and a much valued member of the Commonwealth. That needs to be said because Donald Trump covets this country as the 51st state of the United States of America. And over all that, the big issue here for the world leaders is what's happening in Iran and Israel. Overnight, the UK has sent RAF Typhoons to protect assets in the Middle East. It is getting very, very tense on a global stage, and that will dominate the G7 when it starts in earnest tomorrow.
Chris Hope there for us in Canada. Here, Sir Keir Starmer has announced a full statutory inquiry into grooming gangs following a damning audit by Baroness Louise Casey. The Prime Minister said he had accepted her recommendation for a national investigation into group-based child sexual abuse across England and Wales. That inquiry will have legal powers to compel evidence and testimony and will coordinate targeted local investigations, even where councils object. Sir Keir Starmer said he's read every word of Casey's report and now believed a fresh inquiry was, quote, the right thing to do. It's a major shift for the Labour government, which earlier this year resisted calls for a national probe, despite pressure from victims, opposition MPs and even figures like Elon Musk. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper is expected to give a common statement tomorrow. Thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in cities from Barcelona to Venice, calling for an end to what they describe as touristification. It is the largest coordinated push yet against over-tourism, with campaigners saying it's turning communities into playgrounds for the rich. Protesters say their issue, though, isn't with tourists themselves, but with the unchecked growth of an industry that's stripping cities of their identity and treating them like ATMs for outside investors. Now, from Venice to Ibiza, calls are growing for tougher regulation of short-term lets, limits on hotel expansions and policies to prioritise residents over profits. In India, meanwhile, the death toll from Thursday's plane crash in Ahmedabad has now risen to 270. The London-bound Air India flight came down seconds after takeoff and crashed into residential buildings. Only one person, a 40-year-old British man, is confirmed to have survived, and officials are still working to identify victims and confirm how many people on the ground were killed. A black box has been recovered, and investigators from India, the UK and US are now examining what went wrong. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have released 2 new photos of Prince William with George, Charlotte and Louis to mark Father's Day. One shows them lying on the grass in a black and white photo, the other a portrait with William's arms around his 3 children. The caption reads, "Happy Father's Day, Papa, we love you." And those 2 pictures were taken by photographer Josh Shiner, the same man behind the family's 2023 Christmas card. You're up to date just after 1 o'clock. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, let's get back to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Right, we've got a really packed show for you, so you don't want to move a muscle. And we're covering some huge, huge stories. Lots of you getting in touch already, so please do keep them coming in at gbnews.com/yoursay. Now, the main story, obviously, is the major U-turn the Prime Minister has announced into a national inquiry into grooming gangs. It's a response to Baroness Casey's recommendations in a national audit into the scandal, which we haven't actually seen yet, but we know the leaks from it. The Conservatives and Reform are now demanding Sir Keir Starmer apologise for initially rejecting the same move months ago, only allowing 5 councils to set up their own investigations. The government dismissed calls at the start of the year, claiming a 7-year inquiry had already been led by Professor Alexis Jay. Baroness Casey's report is expected to be released next week, we think on Wednesday, and to link the scandal to men of Pakistani origin. But obviously, thankfully, we have the one person that is really just amazing on this story and has done so much hard work. And personally, I'm very grateful for the hard work he's done. Lots of you are as well, I know. It's a GB News national reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, after that build-up, don't let me down. It's quite an astonishing story. This, I mean, you know, we know our Prime Minister flip-flops at the drop of a hat, but this is particularly galling.
Yeah, thank you, Dawn. It is particularly galling for a lot of survivors as well. We've been hearing over the last, night and this morning as well. Some reaction still coming in. People were stunned by some of the language in January, that far-right bandwagon jibe, but also the reference to the ICSA report. There have been ongoing concerns about this government with things they claim on television programmes, perhaps about small boats, and also claims that they made around this issue as well, perhaps not sticking directly to reality, claiming that there was already an inquiry into the grooming gang scandal with ICSA, but it was a subsection of a sub-report. It barely looked at it at all. When this point was repeatedly made to them, they essentially doubled down, tripled down almost, saying, no, we've already had it, we just need to get on with the recommendations. They said that survivors want action, they don't want another inquiry. But in the reaction that we've had last night, it's quite clear that actually a lot of survivors did want that inquiry.
But you knew that from Charlie from day one, when we were talking back on this show months and months ago. You were talking, we had one of the dads of the survivors on there, and they wanted an inquiry then.
Yes, it's been a long-standing demand of theirs, and I think one of the main questions that's got to be asked of this Labour government now is, you said that you were waiting for Baroness Casey's response to come back, but there was a lot of evidence already in the public domain. And so what is in this report that's changed your mind? Perhaps we'll find out as early as tomorrow, even if this report comes out earlier. But for me, it doesn't really matter what's in Casey's report, important though it is, because there's already so much information that we've revealed about 50 different towns and cities where this has been an issue, about cover-ups, about new whistleblowers, about new survivors coming forward. There is so much pointing a national picture of organised criminal networks, often gangs already dealing drugs across the country, or also dealing in children. This is so obviously a national crisis. It's been shown time and time again through all sorts of reporting. And for the government to say, we've already had an inquiry, we don't need this national probe, it didn't stack up. And so it's about time. What's particularly strange, Dawn, is that this Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, he's known, obviously, as a lawyer rather than necessarily a politician. And that can be something that people are quite grateful for. A lot of people don't really like politicians, do they? Don't necessarily like lawyers.
Let's be honest with you,
But he's meant to be a man of process, right? An inquiry is a process. In this case, he sort of out-lawyered himself. He's done a process for another process. But for all of that, Dawn, he is fundamentally the only Prime Minister who's ever ordered a judge-led inquiry into a grooming gang scandal. Kemi Badenoch last night said this was a victory for the Conservatives, but
Well, they didn't do anything for 14. To be fair, to use Labour's phrase, you didn't do anything for 14 years.
They did something. They launched a Grooming Gangs task force in 2023, which did make loads of arrests and did launch new investigations. But the evidence for a national inquiry was there when they were in power as well. So for all their criticism and for all the confusion about Sir Keir Starmer's position and Labour's action, I think Labour has some of the strongest voices on grooming gangs. Some MPs like Sarah Champion, Paul Ward, the Labour peer Maurice Glasman. He doesn't want just an inquiry, Dawn. He wants an inquiry with powers of arrest.
And if you remember,
so he's done it.
And if you remember, Charlie, it was Keighley MP, our Labour MP, and Cryer.
Quite right, yeah.
Decades ago, who first spoke out about this issue.
And she was derided as a racist for doing so. Jack Straw also had the same experience. Sarah Champion, who's very bravely remained principled on this issue, she was actually removed from the front bench for raising it before. So Labour, it's no doubt, we've criticised the Conservatives here, but Labour have definitely had major problems.
What are they so scared of, Charlie? What have politicians of all political persuasions been so scared of that they have dragged their feet on this national inquiry?
I think the establishment as a whole and British politics and the whole system, as it were, not just individual political parties and politicians, have prioritised what they think is community cohesion over justice for children.
So basically they're thrown girls, young girls, under the bus for their own political backsides.
I think that has been the approach of the state and the establishment for the last 2 decades or so. They think that basically this issue is too difficult to deal with and that it's better off if we just ignore it and hope it goes away, that these are essentially expendable children. But I don't think that that's going to work anymore because of the amount of information that's now out in public. And I think also a lot of that nervousness about community cohesion is misplaced. When you poll people about this issue, regardless of their background, white Britons, ethnic minorities, all races and religions, they want a national inquiry, and they also want severe punishment, not just for the groomers and the abusers, but also for those who covered it up. This is actually one of the most unifying perspectives in this country, but politicians don't get it.
Charlie, we're running out of time. Just one very, very quick thing. If the full truth of the horror that is what's been going on for decades were really uncovered in this inquiry, would we ever trust any of our institutions ever again?
I think it's more than just about trusting institutions. It's about trusting a whole political project. Have we got a political system that doesn't really protect children? That would be a really devastating realisation to come to.
In any case, more from you later on. Don't go anywhere. Right, OK, and don't you go anywhere either. Right, RAF jet, the other big story of the day. Obviously, RAF jets and military assets are set to be deployed to the Middle East following Iran's warning that the UK and its allies will be targeted if they help stop missile attacks on Israel. Overnight, the two states have continued strikes on one another, with Iran's president threatening a more severe response. So let's go to our other brilliant reporter we have here, Home and Security editor Mark White. Mark, where are you, Mark? Are you there? There you are, Mark. Mark, OK, what's the latest on this one?
Well, grim news, really, with an updated figure on the number of fatalities in Israel. That has now risen to 12, with up to 200 injured. I think there's a real sense of shock across Israel. They were not really, I think, prepared or as prepared as you would imagine for the level of have taken place in terms of the ballistic missiles that we can see there getting through, because they have this very effective layered missile defence system that has been so good at bringing down the rockets and missiles and drones that have come from Hamas in Gaza or Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and indeed its proxies in Syria and Iraq over recent years. But what we're dealing with is a magnitude well above that now, with ballistic missiles launched from Iran, and a significant number of them either impacted or the debris from those ballistic missiles landed and caused some severe disruption. We want to show you Bat Yam. That's the shots of a metropolitan area, city just in the southern outskirts of Tel Aviv. And look at those images. It's just horrific. That was an apartment block that took a direct hit. Now, we're told that the death toll from there is 8 at the moment, but there are significant numbers, we believe, still trapped under the rubble there. Individuals who, you know, at that time in the morning, about 3 a.m., would have been asleep. Most, it would be hoped, would have gone to the shelters, although Israeli sources have been suggesting a number of the injured and dead may have not gone to the shelters as instructed. There's a well-worn process. Every building has air raid shelters, every shop, every local facility that is just meters really away from you in terms of the nearest shelter, and people are trained to go there. But, you know, at 3 in the morning, some might not have. But, you know, you see the images, daytime of that location, showing just how significant it was. And it wasn't just in the Tel Aviv area, but northern Israel as well. Properties there took hits from ballistic missiles in the north, and also the oil terminal up in Haifa in northern Israel. Some of the pipelines at that refinery were struck as well. And then in terms of what's happening in Iran, well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu toured the site in Tel Aviv this morning and said Iran would pay a heavy price. Well, we're already looking at the images there and seeing one of the fuel depots near Tehran ablaze. We are seeing very significant airstrikes from Iran, more than 700 over the past couple of days. And as we speak, there are more airstrikes pounding that area around central Tehran as well. 2 large explosions have just been heard in central Tehran. We are also told that airfields, airports across Iran are also being targeted as we speak. As for Israel, well, Ben Gurion Airport, of course, in Tel Aviv is closed at the moment. All air traffic over Israel is closed, and that's one of the reasons why the UK government is saying do not travel to Israel. All travel is severely restricted in that country.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark, for that update. That is our Home Security agent, Mark White. Thank you very much, Mark, with a very full report there for you. Not the greatest news by the sounds of it. Right, OK, as you've just heard, you can't fly to Tel Aviv or Israel at the moment. The airspace is closed down. So let's hear from someone who's actually out there for us. That's journalist Benjamin Butterworth. Benjamin, we spoke to you yesterday, a brilliant report from you yesterday, bringing some colour of what it's actually like for people in Tel Aviv at the moment. How was last night for you?
Well, it was the third long night that we've had. At about 11:30 p.m. Tel Aviv time, we were all ordered into the bomb shelters because of a missile warning. It actually came much later than I expected. The previous night had been 9 p.m. And so one of the things that really gets you in this situation is that trepidation, is that wait for something to happen. And so we were in the bomb shelter at about 11:30 p.m. It was only there for about 10 minutes at that time. And then the more serious danger came in the middle of the night at about 2:30 a.m., which was when there was, we were taken down into a bomb shelter and we were there for about half an hour. That was when the missiles hit that you're seeing that killed 6 or 8 people. I think you've got 10 people overnight on your screen. And we were down there for quite a time. And when it's the middle of the night, it's really quite stressful. It's quite daunting. Everyone looks exhausted. You know, in the earlier ones, some people took a glass of wine down into the bomb shelter, but it was quite stressful, yeah.
And what are these when you say bomb shelter, obviously for us living in the comfort of the UK at the moment, we have no concept of how the big cities in Israel actually do put up with this pretty much on a nightly basis. What's the bomb shelter like? What does it actually mean?
So every home and every building in Israel has to have a safe room, a protection room. And so in the case of this, it's about 2 floors below the building, so it's below ground in here in Tel Aviv. Some people have reinforced rooms in their flats. Other blocks of flats have it below the building. And this is essential across the country because although what I'm experiencing here is new and is daunting, and what's happening in these days is some of the most dangerous in Israel's history, it's also the case that the aesthetics of the alarms of going into these shelters is usual for people in Israel. They all have to have these protection rooms. And so, you know, there's a real stoicism to the Israeli attitude. It is a distinct part of their psyche. We in Britain would call it the Blitz spirit. We still talk about it 80 years after the Second World War. And that's what you get here, because you can see in the background the beautiful Tel Aviv beach. Now, the instructions in the state of emergency mean that not many people are allowed to go outside. You're not meant to stray far from your shelter at any time under those rules. It's a little bit like the COVID pandemic. But you've still got people leading their lives. There are still people having drinks in the middle of the day, trying to stay strong. And I have to say, you know, the sense of determination is very strong here. People are not feeling nervous about whether it's right to attack Iran, whether it's right to try and take out this threat to Israel.
Ben, just very, very, very quickly, because we have run out of time, unfortunately. Airspace is closed down now, no travel to Israel from the UK. How are you going to get home?
There's a plan to try and evacuate through Jordan. There's a 3-hour queue at the border from Israel into Jordan, and the airport, Amman airport in the capital of Jordan, is apparently completely chaotic as people are desperately trying to use that country to get out of the region. But I'll update you tomorrow on whether I'm able to be evacuated from here.
OK. Well, good luck, lovely. Thank you very much once again for that report. That's Benjamin Butterworth, who is live in Tel Aviv for us. Good luck, Benjamin. Stay safe. Thank you very much. OK, well, 2 big stories for the day for you. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show, including we have a little bit of fun as well. A rare military parade marking the US Army's 250th anniversary took place in Washington yesterday on Donald Trump's 79th birthday. He said it was a big day and admitted we wanted to show off a little bit. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, part of a Soviet-era spacecraft stranded in orbit for more than 50 years will crash back to Earth today.
Yes, Cosmos 482 launched in 1972 on a mission to Venus, but it failed to escape Earth's orbit and broke into 4 pieces.
Well, now experts are closely monitoring its re-entry, but where it will land remains a mystery.
It was due to land in, what is it, about 40 minutes now? Yeah, not long to go till we find out. Well, earlier we spoke to space expert Andy Land. He told us what makes this spacecraft different to the others we've seen previously.
Currently, it's over the South Pacific, so it's heading towards South America. The odds are really unlikely. The chances are it's going to crash into the ocean, to be quite honest. Other parts of this fell into the Pacific Ocean, although in the early days when it got into the wrong orbit, of course, the lower sections of it actually crashed into New Zealand and landed in a field. But no, I think you've got more chance of being struck by lightning or winning the lottery than actually being hit by a piece of this material. The only interesting thing about this mission, of course, it is a Venus atmospheric entry probe, which means it's designed to survive entry through a dense atmosphere. And in particular case, Venus's atmosphere is more dense than the Earth's atmosphere. It's designed to withstand fantastic temperatures, absolutely fantastic temperatures, huge pressures. So this piece will hit the ground or hit into the ocean. That's what makes this a very different creature from previous satellites which have broken up, which normally they just break up into pieces. This is designed to actually come back. And in case people think, well, wouldn't the parachute system operate? It's unlikely the parachute system is operating at all after half a century. So it's going to be a ballistic drop.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain. We like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Needham. Thank you very much for your company on this lovely Father's Day. Hope you're having a wonderful time out there. Remember that we are going to be on your telly and on your radio, so no escape, especially for Dad. Now, we're going to the other side of the pond. Donald Trump celebrated his 79th birthday at a US military parade marking 250 years of the country's army as well. It was the first time in more than 30 years an event like this has been held on the streets of Washington, D.C. At the same time, obviously, protests against the US president were being held across the country. So joining us now is a spokesperson for Republicans overseas, a UK, Jennifer Ewing. Looking fabulous, Jennifer, as I just said. I do love that colour on you. Now, obviously, this all happened overnight. Big parade, military might through the city. Did it go as well as people were expecting?
I think that depends on who you ask.
Right.
So for the Patriots, you know, for the 77 million people who voted for President Trump, I think they thought it went really, really well. We like a bit of pomp and circumstance in our country. So, yeah, it's the sort of the kickoff. As you know, next year will be our 250th anniversary as a country. But this year, yesterday was obviously the 250th anniversary of the Army, which coincided with Flag Day as well.
What's Flag Day?
It just celebrates the flag.
Right, okay.
So,
just flags.
And then, as you mentioned earlier, it was President Trump's 79th birthday. So, you know, coincidence, or I don't know, you know, designed years ago. But so all three events fell on the same thing. President Trump has a very, very good instinct for what makes most Americans tick. You know, we saw that in the election where we had Biden and Kamala Harris, you know, with Hollywood stars and Beyonce and all these people. And Trump was in a garbage truck or serving McDonald's. So this will have made a lot of people who voted for him happy. Also, it's a very good recruiting sort of advertisement for the military.
Because someone mentioned yesterday when I was talking about this, there have been problems recruiting for the American military over the past few years. What's happened there?
Well, I think it got a little too, you know, the Army and the Navy, the entire military should be there to protect Americans, right? It's for our security. I think they fell a little bit too down the hole of the DEI stuff. We saw some of the senior naval people who were, in fact, I don't want to call them cross-dressing, but whatever they were doing. So there was a lot of
They were quite clearly men wearing women's clothing.
Okay,
I'm sorry, but they were.
There you go.
They were.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm saying that. I mean, cancel me, but they were.
I wasn't sure the actual status of that person, actually, Rachel or somebody. But the point is, you know, if you're trying to attract young men, let's be honest, and some women too, but they're going there, they want to feel strength, they want to feel supported, they want to feel like they can be a part of the greatest military in the world. And if you're talking down to them and telling, you know, toxic masculinity and all this sort of stuff, there's a problem. So we reverse that. The new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, has been, you know, very much about, you know, we're getting the military back together. This will have helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole Flag Day thing. Now, we've seen lots of protests in America with people protesting against King Day or something or other. They seem to think he sees himself as the next king. But they're waving the flags of Mexico and sort of like Palestine. How many times do we see a Palestinian flag these days? If you're, you know, wanting to start a new life in America, why are you waving the flag of a foreign country, certainly a foreign country you've just fled from? Does that make sense to you?
It does not.
No.
And what's funny is the people who are funding a lot of these protests, you know, whether it be last week, the LA riots, where it started around some of the ICE illegal immigration raids and such, realized that the optics were terrible. They had these guys standing on burning cars, waving Mexican flags, as you say. I mean, that is hardly the way to announce that you want to be part of America. So a lot of these groups that were funding some of these inorganic protests started handing out American flags because, just like you pointed out, like, this does not make sense.
OK, exactly. And there didn't seem that big a crowd at the actual parade yesterday, or was that just me getting the images that some people wanted me to see?
Yeah, you know what? I wasn't there. I was flying back from the Czech Republic, so I don't know. And you're right. The images that people want you to see, you look at one image and it looks like, you know, there's millions of football fields full of people. You look at another one and somebody will say, oh, there's two people sitting on a bench.
Yeah.
No one showed up for poor President Trump's birthday party. So, again, I think he's pleased with it, though I don't think he would say if he wasn't. But no, net, it certainly wasn't a failure.
OK, brilliant. Jennifer, a pleasure as always.
Nice
Jennifer
to see you.
Ewing there. Thank you very much for bringing us up to date on, well, the military parade and Trump's birthday. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News. There's loads more coming up on today. It's absolutely packed. But first, it is time again. Blimey, time flying. News headlines with Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you. Just after 1:30. Well, the top story this lunchtime: don't travel to Israel under any circumstances. That is the message from the government this afternoon. The Foreign Office has now updated its advice, warning the conflict with Iran could escalate fast, with air links already disrupted and missiles intercepted over Israel and the Palestinian territories. Travellers, are being told to ignore that. Ignoring advice could void their insurance and to report any falling debris or missile fragments to local authorities. It comes as Israel has launched fresh strikes overnight on Iran's nuclear sites, with at least 10 killed and over 100 injured. Iran is now threatening more severe response, and planned nuclear talks with the US have now been cancelled. More British military jets are being sent to the Middle East amid intensifying conflict. Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed Typhoons and air-to-air refuelling aircraft have been deployed as contingency support across the region. But he stressed the UK's message remains focused on de-escalation. The Prime Minister wouldn't be drawn on whether UK jets could help defend Israel, but said the government recognises Israel's right to self-defence and has long-standing concerns about Iran's nuclear ambitions. A leading child protection charity has welcomed Sir Keir Starmer's decision to launch a national statutory inquiry into grooming gangs, but has warned action must not be delayed. The NSPCC says it's pleased the Prime Minister has accepted the recommendation of Baroness Casey's review, but urges the government not to lose time tackling child sexual abuse. Its chief executive says survivors have already waited for too long since the findings of a 2022 independent inquiry. Well, Sir Keir Starmer says he's read every single word of Baroness Casey's report and believes launching the inquiry is the right thing to do. The move's been praised as a welcome U-turn by Nigel Farage from the Reform UK party, but met with criticism from the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, who says the Prime Minister should apologise for 6 wasted months. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have released 2 new photos of Prince William with his children George, Charlotte and Louis to mark Father's Day. One shows them lying on the grass in black and white, and the other a portrait with William's arms around his children, along with a caption that says, "Happy Father's Day, Papa, we love you." Those 2 pictures were taken by photographer Josh Shiner, who's the same man behind the family's 2023 Christmas card. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour, and Dawn will be straight back with you right now.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now, remember, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today. It's really easy to get involved, and I really want you to. I know it's a busy day with dads and everything, but please do get in touch. I love talking to you all. gbnews.com/yoursay and join in our conversation. But there is loads more coming up on today's show.
Stop bombing Iran! Stop bombing Gaza!
Yeah, pro-Palestine protesters marched through London yesterday, chanting "Stop bombing Iran," with large crowds gathered in Parliament Square waving Palestinian and Iranian flags. We've seen it all before, haven't we? But given Iran is actually threatening strikes on the UK and threatening UK citizens who are out in the Gulf, is this ignorance or just actually fair comment? All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News. Don't go too far. You don't want to miss what's coming next. See you soon.
Hello there, this is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. It is a slightly mixed picture for this second half of the weekend. We do have high pressure building in from the south, keeping many of us fine and settled, but there's also this weather front just slipping its way into the northwest of the UK, and it's already been providing more in the way of clouds, some outbreaks of light rain as well. It's going to continue its journey south and eastwards, so it will eventually arrive into parts of northwest England and Wales later on today. Can't rule out the odd sharp shower for some central southeastern areas of England, but in general it is this southeastern quadrant of the UK that's going to hold on to the best of the sunshine. Generally less humid compared to some recent days, but still pleasantly warm in that sunshine, highs of 23, 24 degrees Celsius. More around high teens where we have that cloud, but once the main band pushes its way through, there will be some sunny spells emerging for Northern Ireland and particularly eastern Scotland as we do head later on in the afternoon and the evening. Our next area of rain, though, is going to be steadily moving its way into western Scotland as we head into the overnight period. This one coming with a slightly freshening breeze, a brisk around some coastal regions, and it will eventually turn heavy over some of the hills and the mountains across northwestern Scotland. Everywhere else, though, should stay largely dry tonight with some clear spells. A few mist and fog patches forming, particularly across the south and the west, but otherwise fairly mild with temperatures holding up around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. The rain will be on and off throughout the day on Monday for northwestern Scotland, so quite damp here, and again still with that brisk wind around at times. But elsewhere it will be a fairly pleasant start to the new working week, some sunny spells emerging for most of us, and temperatures actually beginning to climb up a little bit more. So now seeing the chances of 26 degrees Celsius in the southeast and even 22, 20 for central eastern areas of Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. It's a trend that's going to continue throughout this week. The sunshine will become increasingly prolonged and temperatures are going to climb even further. Bye-bye.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, there you are. Welcome back. Now, pro-Palestine protesters marched through Westminster on Saturday, chanting "Stop bombing Iran." Large crowds gathered in Parliament Square, waving Palestinian and Iranian flags, urging the government to halt all military support for Israel. This comes as Egyptian authorities halted demonstrators planning to march to the country's border with Gaza, with the stated aim of breaking Israel's blockade on the territory. Yes, joining me now is political commentator Fahima Mohammed. Fahima, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. Fahima, we have seen protests a lot through London recently, obviously with the Palestinian flag, and now we have the Iranian flag added to the mix. I mean, what do you think about the message about stop bombing Iran? What do you think about this message?
I think it's more than just stop bombing Iran. These are peaceful protesters from many, countries that are actually echoing the same message, that at the end of the day, they don't want to be silenced for peaceful solidarity, for the authoritarian repression and the double standards of Western governments. Because when it comes to human rights, depending on who's committing the abuse, and I think that's why people are standing up. And UK citizens were detained in Egypt, had their passports taken, they were threatened with deportation for protesting peacefully. And that alone demands diplomatic intervention.
Well, I mean, the thing is with marching through London with the stop bombing Iran, we're not bombing Iran for a start. So what is the point of, doing that in the UK? Go and do it in Israel.
Look, Israel and Egypt are actually sort of funded by the UK. They both, they send military and aid money. So it does come as a responsibility for funding regimes that pretend to say that, at the end of the day, they're not, they're blocking humanitarian aid. We need to make sure that the UK constantly talks about defending democracy and human rights abroad. So when we are silent here, then what does that say? So that's why these peaceful protests, you might call them extreme and radical, and that's undermining peaceful activism. Just because you do not actually maybe like countries like Palestine, not you in particular, but just generally people, then again, it's probably a double standard. If we condemned, China and Hong Kong or Iran's morality police at the end of the day, then why can't we go against the fact that these bombs are taking place again without international law, and it's not in line with that. And this is a humanitarian thing. It's not even about politics. It's about the fact that Israel is actually going out there and acting in a criminal manner, which again everyone is silent about. They're not talking about that, and they actually went for Iran first. And there were diplomatic talks that were happening at the same time. And it happened before in Iraq, and now it's happening again without any sort of evidence. And many people, even the former ambassador, has mentioned that this is illegal, what Israel is doing. And it's doing this without anyone condemning Israel, but worrying about the fact that these democracies that we're living in the West is actually not, conforming to their standards that they would. Okay. It's not about, do it over there, not over here. We are also complicit. These governments are being funded by the UK. And at the end of the day, we have to have a right to sort of say that this is illegal. We can't just say it's illegal for one country and not another.
OK, Fahima, going back to the protests about Iran, Iran is not a democracy. It treats its citizens appallingly, in particular women. We know, obviously that poor girl that lost her life a couple of years ago now, when she was arrested by the morality police, but for not wearing her hair covering properly. I mean, and we have young women on this march.
So do we need to bomb those countries because they have a certain way of being things? That's the thing. You want to address.
Are you defending their way of doing? Are you defending their way of doing things, Fahima? I mean, you're a young woman.
It's for them to decide what they want to do in their authoritarian state. They have a different sort of system there. And if it's being condemned, that's absolutely fine to go and protest against the oppression that's happening. But it doesn't give a right for an international, place to be bombed in that way. It's also sovereign. It did not actually attack any of its neighbors. It's Israel that's attacking everyone around them and committing war crimes. And also, Netanyahu is actually been, called out for an arrest. Why is no one talking about that? I don't understand that. People are not for the regime of Iran. They are there to say that is illegal under international law. So why can't we see that? Why are people not seeing that? They haven't proven anything to say that they can go out there and actually bomb them without any evidence. And again, it's again taking over someone's sort of territory without actually, doing it in a diplomatic way, which is what the talks were happening at the moment. And then Israel decided, no, if you don't agree with us, we're just going to go out and kill you.
Fahima, we do have the other part of the debate actually joined us now. Alan Mendoza, Executive Director of the Henry and Jackson Society. Alan, thank you so much for actually joining us. I'm assuming you've just heard what Fahima was saying.
Bits of it. I only heard the end of a rant, so not really sure what she was saying there. Maybe you'd like to give me a bit of time to talk, and now that she's had a lot.
OK, yeah, you say what you want to say about this situation and about people are in the streets of the UK waving Iran flags and saying we should stop bombing Iran, even though we're actually not.
Well, exactly. We're not actually involved in that at all. Rather mistakenly, we should be in terms of trying to stop attacks on Israel. But let's focus on what's going on. The reason that we have at the moment this situation of Israel bombing Iran is because Iran has for many, many, many years been breaking international law trying to get a nuclear weapon. There's also an undeclared state of war between Israel and Iran because if you'll remember, Iran fired 2 volleys of ballistic missiles last year at Israel, unprovoked, unprompted. So the idea that there is no war that's been going on for some time is ludicrous. Iran started this war. It started the war on October the 7th, if you really want to go back there. But in reality, it's already attacked Israel twice with 300 ballistic missiles and 200 ballistic missiles. So Israel's been waiting for its time to retaliate, and it's retaliated now because Iran was ready to break out of its nuclear shell into a full-scale nuclear weapons power. And that obviously can't be allowed. So those people marching in the streets for Iran to have nuclear weapons are delusional. This is an evil regime that has threatened its neighbors, has supported terrorism across the region, that MI5's Director General told us last year was responsible for 20 plots on British soil. It threatens UK national security. The idea that people are marching for it is frankly insanity, and it shows you the state of the debate in some quarters of this country where people are appeasing danger, appeasing evil, and thinking they're clever doing it. They're not. They're actually endangering British national security.
Unfortunately, we have actually run out of time. But Fahima,
I am not ranting.
Fahima, I'm so sorry. We have literally run out of time. You've both actually been brilliant, and I'm sorry we have run out of time. We'll have you both back, definitely. That's Fahima Mohammed and Ella Mendoza there on the protest in London. OK, thank you very much, you two. That got feisty, didn't it? OK, so let's actually now do you want some good news? I do. So let's find out if you are going to escape to the Mediterranean or somewhere lovely. Here's the weather forecast you'll need.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If it's heat you're after, then the Mediterranean is the place to be over this forthcoming week. We are going to be seeing temperatures climb over the next few days. Worth noting that heat could spark off a few showers and thunderstorms in places, but generally there will be plentiful amounts of sunshine for many of these countries if you are heading out. The peak of the heat likely to be on Wednesday at this point, for inland areas in particular, seeing 35 to 40 degrees Celsius.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello, welcome back and happy Father's Day, because that's what we're talking about now, because I think if you've got a good dad, you are made for life. Joining me now is all the wonderful Lucy Beresford to talk about why dads are so important, and maybe not just dads but father figures.
I was going to say, not everybody is blessed with having a father in their lives, but they may have a role model, they may have a male role model who's there and supportive and guiding. And it's not just about that unconditional love that that individual can give you, but sometimes it's just the practical advice. I can still remember water, air, fuel, tyres, waft, which is what my dad told me about my car. You absorb all of that kind of love and knowledge by osmosis. And nowadays, I think we're very alert to the fact that if you don't have that guiding hand, you are perhaps feeling a little bit rudderless in your life. And how can we make sure that even if you don't have an actual father in your life, that actually we pay attention to people who don't, so that they can actually get role models, maybe at school, maybe in social clubs, sporting clubs. That would be a really good thing.
And why is it so important to have a male role model in your life?
Well, there are two, I suppose, sexes, two genders in life in terms of the biology, and you bring different attributes to that. It helps you form your relationships with other men going forward. It could be male colleagues, it could be men that you might have relationships with, and it just adds a counterbalance to other women in your life, because we are different and we bring different things to the party.
OK, talking of very important dads, I think we are role models, male role models. Lucy, let's see, do you recognise this picture, Lucy?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
That's you and your dad, isn't it?
So that's my 5th birthday.
Oh, that's your sister, OK.
No, my 5th birthday.
Oh, your 5th birthday? Oh,
yes.
Wow.
And I have my mouth open because my mouth is always...
Because your mouth is always open. You're normally saying he looks lovely and man. And, yeah, and the 5th birthday, wow. And, OK, and we also have, I think, a picture of my dad, is it? That's not at my 5th birthday. That's obviously on my wedding day, which is 1,001 years ago now. And my dad was one of the proudest dads, and we didn't always have the best relationship, but in one of the proudest moments of his life. Thank you very much, Dad. And also we have a producer called Lewis, who, you know, just irritates my ear. And that's Lewis's dad. Oh. Marvellous. Lewis, yeah, absolutely. Lewis is a wonderful person, by the way. Thank you very much, Lucy, for coming in. Sorry it's been so short and sweet. Happy Father's Day, everybody. But don't go too far. We are back after this very short break. We'll see you soon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a very good afternoon to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Over the next few days, many of us will be seeing fine and dry conditions overall. And that is courtesy of an area of high pressure that is building in from the Azores and will be gradually moving across many areas of the UK. For the time being, there are a few weather fronts just moving across the north, and they've been providing some fairly light outbreaks of rain. For Northern Ireland, England and Wales, though, they'll be petering out this evening, and so tonight will be largely dry with some clear spells, a few mist and fog patches. But there'll be more rain arriving into northwestern Scotland during the second half of the night, and that could turn heavy over the hills. A mild night nonetheless, temperatures holding up around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. As we move into the new working week, it is going to be northern and western areas of Scotland that are the wettest. The heaviest of the rain will be first thing in the morning. It will tend to ease off a little bit throughout the day, but it's still going to be a fairly grey and damp day to come here. Quite a brisk breeze around the coast and the mountains. The bulk of the rain should avoid Northern Ireland, but I can't rule out that the odd spot stretches into western counties and it will be cloudier here. For England and Wales, though, there'll be a decent amount of sunshine right from the get-go on Monday morning, and that will continue throughout the day. Some fair weather cloud will bubble up and it could turn hazy at times, particularly across the far south of England, but nonetheless it'll be staying dry, fine and pleasant. The temperatures will be up by a good few degrees tomorrow compared to the values we're seeing today. So we'll be climbing towards the mid-20s of Celsius across southeastern areas of England. But 22 degrees is possible for Northern Ireland, parts of central and eastern Scotland where it's driest, more around mid-teens for the northwest of Scotland where we do have that rain continuing to push its way through. And the winds will strengthen into Monday evening and overnight, potentially reaching gale strength for a time. So potential for further cloud and rain across the northwest first thing on Tuesday, but the trend is for things to generally turn more settled overall and temperatures to continue climbing. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 15th of June, and a very, very happy Father's Day to everybody. And if you haven't got a dad and you're missing yours, like I'm missing mine, then I know how you're feeling. This is the weekend on GB News. Your main stories this hour. The Prime Minister U-turns on grooming gangs. A national inquiry will be launched into the abuse scandal. This comes after Sir Keir Starmer described calls for an inquiry as jumping on a far-right bandwagon earlier this year.
And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
And tensions soar as RAF jets are deployed to the Middle East amid fears of an all-out war. It comes as multiple casualties have been reported in Israel in the latest wave of ballistic missile strikes from Iran. And the Prime Minister is in Canada today as the G7 summit kicks off in Alberta. But what will be on the agenda?
That's right, so Keir Starmer's here in Canada meeting the G7 starting tomorrow. All that counts, though, really is peace in the Middle East. That'll be the talk between the big players when they meet up.
Indeed. And building British, the government will tell companies they must prioritise workers from the UK if they want to win contracts to build roads, hospitals and power. Do you think that sounds a bit like jumping on a far-right bandwagon, doesn't it? British jobs for British workers. What do you think, though?
The sort of pornography that people might have been used to in the 1980s. We're talking about extreme violent acts, degrading acts against women in pornography.
And Labour MP Jessa Sato has spoken exclusively to GB News in yet another unmissable interview with our very own Gloria De Piero. Stay tuned to find out how she's trying to tackle the ever-growing threat of exploitative online pornography. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. Oh dear, I dared to look down at my notes, right, because I'm a serious journalist. I looked down at my notes, and the voices in my head, or the very young man who are working in the production panel thing over there, are giggling away in my ears because I wasn't looking at the camera. It's Father's Day. I'm sorry. I don't care in any case. Look, OK, this show is nuts. Stop giggling in my ears, people. This show isn't about them or me. It's about you and your comments and views and all the stories we're discussing today, especially Father's Day. I want to hear about you and your dad and sort of like any special thoughts and memories. Let me know, because it's very important to remember. Well, if you've still got him, I'm really jealous, but to remember those that are no longer with us as well. So get in touch, gbnews.com/yoursay, and join in the conversation. But before we get stuck into today's stories, let's get the latest news headlines. Yeah, and it is still Sam Francis. Here he is.
John, thank you. A very good afternoon to you. At 2 o'clock, the top story: don't travel to Israel under any circumstances. That is the message from the government this afternoon. The Foreign Office has now updated its advice to warn against all travel to Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, saying the situation is, well, fast-moving and now dangerous. Foreign Secretary David Lammy says the safety of British nationals is the government's top priority. It comes after Israel and Iran exchanged yet more fire overnight, and the UK announced RAF jets are being sent to the region as a precaution. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, though, says it doesn't mean the UK is at war, but hasn't ruled out supporting Israel in the future. Iran, meanwhile, is warning that the UK, US and France could be targeted if they help defend Israel. Meanwhile, the G7 summit in Canada is set to be overshadowed by that escalating conflict in the Middle East. Leaders had planned to focus on trade, energy security and Russia's war in Ukraine. But Israel's strikes on Iran are now centre stage. Sir Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron have called for restraint, but Japan has condemned Israel's actions, while President of the United States, Donald Trump, has praised them. Our political editor, Chris Hope, is in Canada for us ahead of the G7 summit. He says there appear to be deep divisions among leaders there.
The G7 in Canada is all back to the world stage. He said overnight to us that Canada is an independent and sovereign country and a much valued member of the Commonwealth. That needs to be said because Donald Trump covets this country as the 51st state of the United States of America. And over all that, the big issue here for the world leaders is what's happening in Iran and Israel. Overnight, the UK has sent RAF Typhoons to protect assets in the Middle East. It is getting very, very tense on a global stage, and that will dominate the G7 when it starts in earnest tomorrow.
Chris Hope there for us in Canada. Well, here, Sir Keir Starmer has announced a full statutory inquiry into grooming gangs following a damning audit by Baroness Louise Casey. The Prime Minister said he had accepted her recommendation for a national investigation into group-based child sexual abuse across England and Wales. The inquiry will have legal powers to compel evidence and testimony and will coordinate targeted local investigations even where councils object. Sir Keir Starmer said he'd read every word of Casey's report and now believed a fresh inquiry was the right thing to do. It is a major shift for the Labour government, which earlier this year had resisted calls for a national probe, despite pressure from victims and opposition MPs. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper will give a Commons statement tomorrow, with Casey's full report expected to be published at the same time. In India, the death toll from Thursday's plane crash in Ahmedabad has now risen to 270, according to doctors there. The London-bound Air India flight came down seconds after takeoff, crashing into a residential building. Only one person, a 40-year-old British man, is confirmed to have survived, and officials say they're still working to identify victims. A black box has been recovered, and investigators from India, the UK and the US are now examining what went wrong. And it is, of course, Father's Day, so the Prince and Princess of Wales have, in traditional form, released 2 new photos of Prince William with his children George, Charlotte and Louis. One shows them lying on the grass in a black and white cuddle. The other is a portrait with William's arms around his children. There's also a caption that says, "Happy Father's Day, Papa, we love you." The pictures were taken by photographer Josh Shiner, the same man behind the family's Christmas card in 2023. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll hand you back to Dawn as soon as she's finished checking her makeup. I think she's ready. Yes, let's hand over to her now.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks very much, Sam. One of the good young men I have to work with, unlike the voices in my head from the gallery outside. Any case, enough about them. We've got a packed show coming up for you, so let's get straight into the story, shall we? The PM is in Canada, and for those of you saying that's the best place for him, stop it. It's not that. Well, maybe. Any case, he's in Canada, attending the G7 meeting where the Israel-Iran conflict is expected to be the main conversation. Ahead of his meeting with Canadian PM Mark Carney, he has hinted at possible trade talks restarting. But the major news came on his journey to North America as he told political editor Christopher Hope there will be a national inquiry into that grooming gang scandal. Well, our political editor Christopher Hope does indeed join us now. Mr. Hope, looking very refreshed after your long flight out there. OK, well, bring us up to date on what's happening.
Hi, Dawn. Well, that's right. The big news overnight is this U-turn performed by the Prime Minister on having a statutory inquiry, national inquiry into the rape gang scandal. Don't forget, this is the PM who told us back in January how he felt that it was only the far right would jump on a bandwagon calling for that. He then did commission Louise Casey, Baroness Casey of Blackstock, to do a quick audit of the cases around the country. Charlie Peters, our colleague at GB News, he found 50 towns where it had been a problem, and looks like Louise Casey has found the same. So we'll probably be hearing from her more next week. He has said, Sir Keir Starmer, to us on the flight over, he's read every single word of her report and he will accept her recommendation. So a U-turn there, but probably a welcome one for anyone concerned about the victims of that scandal and why more can't be done. But we're increasingly moving now into the G7 here in Canada. The PM has met overnight with Mark Carney. They watched the ice hockey last night, the meeting again today. Big concerns here about how the UK will respond to the Israel-Iran conflict. And that's what is dominating the conversation once the G7 starts a few hundred miles away from where I am now in Alberta. We know that the UK has dispatched Typhoon fast jets, RAF jets, to look after, as a contingency measure, to look after UK assets in the Middle East. But what more will be done? And will the UK defend Israel if it's attacked? We did defend Israel back in October and April last year. If that happens, we risk bringing Iran into the conflict too, because they then could attack UK assets in the Middle East. It's very, very tense. Frankly, the timing of the G7 couldn't come at a better time, given what's happening in the Middle East.
What other countries are out there, Chris?
Say again, Dawn?
What other countries are actually out there attending?
Well, it's the G7, so it's the US, it's France. I mean, Zelensky's here from Ukraine. Don't forget the conflict in Ukraine. Of course, Donald Trump's here. Friedrich Merz from Germany, and there's others too. I mean, it is the main gathering of the G7. Russia, of course, is not here. They haven't been invited since they invaded Crimea well over a decade ago. But they are here to try and obviously trade's on the agenda. The PM might look at doing other areas too, which matter to him. But no question, the outbreak of fighting in the Middle East is at front of centre, and trying to de-escalate that crisis as much as possible. That's on the main agenda the PM is facing.
Lovely. It will be interesting to see what comes out of it. Hopefully it will be good news. OK, Christopher Hope, thank you very much with the G7 latest, which kicks off this week. OK, now RAF jets and military assets are set to be deployed to the Middle East following Iran's warning that the UK and its allies will be targeted if they help stop missile attacks on Israel. Overnight, the two states have continued strikes on one another, with Iran's president threatening a more severe response. This comes as world leaders, as you just heard from Chris, gather in Canada for that G7 summit. So let's talk about what's actually going on military-wise here now with Defence Editor of the Evening Standard, the wonderful Robert Fox. Robert, thank you very much for joining me. Hello, Robert. Good to see you. Now, Robert, both sides attacking one another overnight again. Where are we with this? What do you think is going to happen going forward?
Well, they look as if they're going on doing the same, and they are inflicting serious damage on each other because Israel didn't expect this level of retaliation. I think they're up to nearly a dozen killed or missing and severely wounded, and strategic assets being hit, like an oil terminal and centre in Haifa. So it looks as if the retaliation by Iran has been well thought out. Now, it's going to be very difficult for Israel to declare victory, that they have knocked out Iran's ability to generate a nuclear weapon, let alone use one a few months down the road. So it's more of the same, and that's what's bewildering allies, including Donald Trump, Keir Starmer, Mr. Macron, and Mr. Scholz, as you heard from the appropriately named Christopher Hope.
Yeah.
What he didn't mention is Japan is one of the G7, and Japan has been very critical of the Israeli initial attack on Thursday night, Friday morning on Iran to take out its nuclear centres and nuclear assets.
OK, yeah, interesting point, actually. I mean, our relationship with Israel is not as good as it once was. I mean, we've even put sanctions on two of their politicians. Is that a good or a bad thing going forward, Robert?
It's a very bad look, because it shows you what a muddle this is. And this is the kind of complex on-off conflict, which it now is, which could affect UK assets and UK interests. And so we've got this rather cautious approach where we may have to go out, protect our interests, protect our own forces. And behind the back of the hand, Keir Starmer said, actually, we might have to help out with the defence of Israel, which is not what he was saying a day and a half ago. If I'm reflecting, it's a big mess. And actually, it's the kind of mess, if you look at the introduction and the aim of the British Defence Review of 10 days ago, not 10 days ago only, it's not the kind of thing that we're prepared for.
No, well, that's one of the problem, isn't it? I mean, you know, if Israel does destroy the regime as it currently exists in Iran, we're left with a vacuum, and we all know what happens with vacuums, don't we?
Yeah, we've been around that one before, haven't we? This century, going into Iraq, going into Afghanistan, although Iraq has shown some signs of improvement. It's a battleground, and by the way, where Iran will be playing things out with its proxies. But look at Afghanistan, and it's these open-ended wars that people like Donald Trump, for very good reason, said that they didn't want continuing war. That's why he's so reluctant to support Netanyahu. He feels he has to. He's known Netanyahu has had this in mind since 2011, but where does it end? Tell me how it finishes, as General David Petraeus said at the beginning of the Iraq War in 2003, or the latest time round there. And I think that this is the problem. And I won't witter on anyone. Where I'm very disappointed with the UK government is that it has not been clear at all what we're doing, what we've got out there. By the way, this idea that we're sending planes, there are planes there already, galore. There's a huge aircraft carrier, in case you've missed it. So what on earth are they doing? I tried, sorry, a little bit of moi, as Miss Piggy would say. I tried to get a statement out of the MOD and the FCDO, that's now called the Foreign Office, yesterday. What is our policy and strategy? What are you putting there? And what is the timescale? Not a dicky bird.
And the answer came, none. Thank you very much, Robert. We have to interrupt you now for some breaking news. So let's go straight to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, with the details. Mark, what's happening?
Well, we can confirm that another barrage of missiles has been launched from Iran towards Israel. There have already been some interceptions over Tel Aviv and the skies over Jerusalem as well. Hopefully we can show you the live shots coming out of that region. It has been confirmed just a minute or two ago. The alert went nationwide, which claimed or told incoming missiles that had been detected and launched from Iran. Just within seconds of that, the alarm started sounding in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem. And I have to say, this is very unusual. And normally what happens is that we get launches of ballistic missiles under the cover of darkness from Iran, not during the day. Clearly they're exposed when their missile launchers go out during the day to launch these missiles towards Israel. But that is indeed what has happened here, and an indication of what we might be in for this evening. And I've just had word through as well from Iranian state TV quoting the Revolutionary Guard Corps, confirming that they have indeed fired missiles towards Israel. Now, these ballistic missiles, if that's indeed what they are, rather than the slower, lower missiles that come across as well, do not take long at all, literally 10 minutes or less to get to Israel. So it might be that the interceptions have already happened, and the explosions that we heard over Tel Aviv and Jerusalem may have been a result of those interceptions. I'm looking at my alert app on the phone that I have that gives me a sort of an up-to-date situational overview of the alerts in Israel, and it is showing, well, it's a nationwide alert, basically, because clearly they've not been able to determine exactly what the trajectory is. I say a nationwide alert, I'll just correct that. Actually, it's mainly to the north again, over, we believe, the area of Haifa. I'm just going to refresh this because sometimes you need to refresh it a bit. But yeah, so that's showing this is an area that took a pounding last night, where we know that Iranian missiles impacted sites around the main Israeli port city of Haifa and actually caused damage, significant damage, to some of the pipelines, the oil pipelines at the refinery in Haifa. And yeah, just looking at my alert system here, it is showing alerts to the north. So I think that's what you're seeing at the moment. Although there's images of Tel Aviv, they're not concentrated on the city as such. They're pushing out on the long end of the lens, looking north to see what they can see. That's what we were doing last night. There was no live camera up in the Haifa area, so what we were seeing from cameras based in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv. It's not a big country, you know. If there are atmospheric explosions at high altitude, you can absolutely see them from down in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem, Dawn.
Mark, just quickly, I mean, if you listen to the Israeli propaganda, they would say that they've been very successful in their attacks and destroyed much of Iran's military might. That doesn't seem to be the case from what we're witnessing live now. And also, the Iron Dome is actually much more fallible than we are led to believe.
they're not infallible. The Israelis actually admit that, and they've been putting out a number of releases today emphasising why people need to go to the bomb shelters when the alarms sound, because the indications from officials are that some of the deaths and injuries may have resulted from individuals who didn't actually make it to a bomb shelter on time. So just reiterating how necessary that is. The missile array defence system is very good. I mean, it's an excellent system, and it's been almost 100% over the years in managing to get the munitions that come over from Gaza or from Lebanon. But when you're dealing with ballistic missiles, they're going up into space, then coming down, and in the terminal phase of that descent, basically, they reach phenomenal speeds, and it can be very difficult unless they're actually taken out above the atmosphere. Exo-atmospheric detonation, it's called. It can be difficult to get them in that terminal phase. Listen, Dawn, if I've got time, I've just had a statement from the IDF.
Yep.
Who said a short while ago sirens sounded in several areas across Israel following the identification of missiles launched from Iran towards the state of Israel. The public is requested to follow the instructions of the Home Front Command. At this time, the Israeli Air Force is operating to intercept and strike where necessary to eliminate the threat. But they say the defence is not hermetic. To answer your previous questions, therefore, it's essential to continue following the instructions of the Home Front Command. We know from last night that a number of these ballistic missiles, Dawn, got through and caused such devastation in that community south of Tel Aviv.
Mark, with the daytime attack, which is we rarely see, it does feel like this is an escalation that neither side are going to back down anytime soon and get back around that negotiating table.
Well, it's certainly, I mean, it's hard to see how things can escalate further. There's been very intense attacks both from Israel on Iran and Iran now launching these waves of attacks on Israel. But yes, it's absolutely a change in tactics because, as I was saying before, I mean, you try and do it under the cover of darkness, clearly from a sort of a tactical point of view where you're given some kind of cover, but when you're launching these ballistic missiles, usually from mobile launchers in the daytime, you're out there in the daytime and you're exposed. If this is what the people of Israel can expect, I mean, certainly, you know, the other way, Israel is absolutely continuing to bomb Iran during the day, but they're doing that because they've got air superiority over large parts of Iran. They've ploughed this corridor, they call it, to the capital, Tehran. And we've seen real significant explosions in Tehran in multiple locations this afternoon. So Iran deciding that daytime attacks are going to be part of the tactic going forward, it seems.
It'd be very interesting to hear what does come out of the G7 meeting, where obviously, you know, this is obviously the main subject on the table. But it does sound from what you're saying now, and this is the fact that we've got daytime bombing raids now, they're not going to listen to anything that comes out of the G7.
Well, Iran has already said, interestingly, that they are pulling away from any cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. That's the nuclear watchdog that had been trying to get oversight of Iran's nuclear program. And I think we're looking there back into Tel Aviv proper with the high-rise blocks there in Tel Aviv there. So again, we listen out for any other sirens, but we're still under alert. The all clear has not been given as yet, so it's absolutely possible that more missiles could come over. As I say, the International Atomic Energy Agency found that Iran was in breach of its nuclear obligations just 3 days ago, and that really, I think, set the scene really for what we then have now witnessed, with Israel deciding to go for it, to try to take out militarily Iran's nuclear program. But there's no doubt it is escalating, because it's gone from just nuclear sites and nuclear scientists and commanders, Dawn. It's now a sort of campaign that is also bombing airports, is also bombing sort of key infrastructure like oil sort of depots and alike.
OK. Mark, thank you very much with that live update on the breaking news that Iran is firing more missiles into Israel during the daytime. We still have Robert Fox with us, defence editor at the Evening Standard. Robert, what do you make of this latest development?
Well, it shows that Israel hasn't located all the launch facilities that they really need to find of the missiles that Mark was just describing. And that is the main tactic. This is the main scheme of maneuver, as they say technically, of Iran now, which is to put in these very fast ballistic missiles, as you said, guided from space. They go up, they come down, and they go many times the speed of sound, and are very, very difficult to pick up. So they're going, if I can use the appalling expression, for swamp. And they're going facilities. Why Haifa? Why the north of Israel? Why on the coast? Because that's how Israel exports. That's where the energy hubs are. And that's what they're looking for there. And they know it will dent morale. It's a horrible kind of war that's going on at the moment. Equally, as Mark so rightly pointed out, is that the aim now is no longer military sites, because there is now a fear that they can't get into some of the nuclear sites, and they're going for commercial assets, but particularly the oil terminals, which will be very damaging. And could I add a note, as you have raised it, about Iron Dome? Iron Dome is very expensive, it's quite greedy, and it needs resupply because it's a complex three-layered radar, detection, targeting, and counter-strike missile system, as we know. And that's where, and it will come up at the G7, that's where Israel absolutely relies on a lot of resupply and support from the United States.
Robert, I mean, where does this end? What is the end game? We always talk about an exit strategy here. I mean, the two sides now have been firing missiles and rockets at one another for 2 days solid. What happens next?
Well, it's very difficult, because so much has been in the mind of two men in particular. One, Benjamin Netanyahu, as we know, he'd been trying to do this, and it'd been part of his whole shtick, if I could put it like that. Goes to the UN, shows diagrams that, look, Iran is going to get a bomb very soon, and it looked as if it was going to get a really actionable small nuclear arsenal by the end of the year, at most up to between 9 and 15 bombs. And he said, look, I'm going to go now. Trump and his predecessors, all of them knew since 2011 that this was in the Israeli thought. But has he really thought it through? That's the big question. And the other personality is, of course, Ali Khamenei, now 86, whose fixation has not been so much on the destruction of Israel, although that is a point, as we know, of cardinal belief of the Islamic Republic, but he himself wants vengeance against America, because he was tortured under the Shah, so he says, and the architects of the torture were the United States. So it's a very personal issue there. And they're producing a very personal strategy, which when you look down and look at the balance of forces, the resources being consumed, one wonders whether they've thought it through. Israel cannot go on with this kind of military action at this tempo in Gaza, the questionable policing activities on the West Bank, also guarding the northern border against Hezbollah. It can't go on at this rate forever. It's a smallish country compared with Iran, and it's got most of those who can be put under arms already.
I mean, it's relying very, very heavily from America for the support. As you say, we haven't been involved in the latest attacks in any way, shape or form. Oh,
Really?
actually, Robert, we have to go back to Mark. We have a new breaking line from Mark, our home security editor. Mark, what's the latest?
Well, we've just had word now from the Home Front Command saying that following those alerts and missile strikes, the all clear has been sounded and that people are allowed now to leave the bomb shelters. But the instruction, of course, as always, is not to wander too far. Not that in Israel you're ever too far from a bomb shelter anyway. What I understand from sources is that there were interceptions, missiles over Tel Aviv and the north of Israel, but all of those missiles, it seems, we'll need to check it out in the minutes ahead, but it seems that all of those missiles on this occasion, unlike overnight, were intercepted before they could impact the ground.
It's amazing how, you know, when you're sitting here talking about it safe in the UK, to imagine, I mean, you're looking at those scenes live on your camera now of Tel Aviv and the blue skies and the sunshine. It's impossible to imagine what it's like to not know when you're going to get that alert, because they have an alert system that goes to their mobile phones. Get to a bomb shelter now. You just can't imagine. And as we were talking to Benjamin Butterworth earlier, they're very stoic about it. This is part of their life. This is what they do. I mean, the question is, Mark, I mean, how long can the people of Israel, can the people of Tel Aviv actually carry on living like this?
Well, they'll put up with it because they've got no choice. They know that they face a real threat from enemies in the region, and you just mentioned it there. They're used to it. Okay, not at this intensity, but you know, I think they are fully behind the government in its efforts to ensure that an avowed enemy such as Iran does not get its hands on a nuclear weapon. I mean, I got a tiny taste after the October 7th terrorist attacks when I was in that area for 2 weeks reporting, and the alerts were fairly regular. There was usually 4 to 5 alerts a day, and after, you know, the first day or two, you know, it was quite shocking to the system, but you do just kind of get used to it, and you're alert, and you go to the bomb shelter and you wait until you get the all clear, and that's it. And you can see actually why perhaps some people, especially if it's 2:33 in the morning, might feel that, oh God, do I have to get up again? I think I'll just stay in bed. And that's what the Israeli authorities are trying to really impress on the population, that we are facing currently a different threat, they are telling them, than we have faced before. Ballistic missiles, which do have the capacity to penetrate that sort of missile defence shield, and as such you've got to get to the bomb shelters because clearly people have been killed, and it seems sadly that the number of dead is only going to continue to rise as they pull more bodies from under the rubble of that apartment block in that community just south of Tel Aviv.
Yeah, Mark, obviously, you know, there are casualties. There are casualties on both sides, but it does seem at the moment, from what we understand, and obviously we can only go on what both countries are telling us, that Iran is indiscriminately targeting, you said it's going for the ports, but indiscriminately targeting areas of Israel with these ballistic missiles. And indeed, with horrific irony, it has to be said, a Palestinian family were killed in the strikes as well, 3 women and a little girl.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Israel claim that the government in Tehran are deliberately targeting civilian areas, and it's hard not to conclude that that's happening when you're seeing ballistic missiles directly impacting apartment blocks. Now, on the other side, of course, you've got the regime in Tehran saying that the Israelis are targeting civilian areas in that country. Well, they're certainly going after senior commanders, nuclear scientists who live in the community. There are more precision strikes than perhaps the ballistic missile that's taking out whole apartment blocks. Because I've seen some of the strikes, you've got a hole in the building and a bit of damage to one or two of the flats. Now, that's not to say there hasn't been some other widespread damage as well. Some of that may be just the result of interceptions that the Iranians have been carrying out against trying to take some of the Israeli munitions out of the sky. But as I say, we'll leave you with this just now. The all clear has been given, but a very worrying development this afternoon. That is the first time that Iran has launched ballistic missiles in the daytime.
Mark White, our Home Affairs correspondent, thank you very much for that live update. And we will bring you any more breaking news as and when we have it on that development. But the all clear has been sounded, so thankfully, hopefully, there will be peace and quiet for a little while longer. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, including the other huge breaking story: Prime Minister's U-turn on grooming gangs. A national inquiry will be launched into the abuse scandal. This comes after Sir Keir Starmer described calls for an inquiry as jumping on that far-right bandwagon earlier this year. All of that and much, much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
Hello there, this is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. It is a slightly mixed picture for this second half of the weekend. We do have high pressure building in from the south, keeping many of us fine and settled, but there's also this weather front just slipping its way into the northwest of the UK, and it's already been providing more in the way of clouds, some outbreaks of light rain as well. It's going to continue its journey south and eastward, so we'll eventually arrive into parts of northwest England and Wales later on today. Can't rule out the odd sharp shower for some central southeastern areas of England, but in general it is this southeastern quadrant of the UK that's going to hold on to the best of the sunshine. Generally less humid compared to some recent days, but still pleasantly warm in that sunshine, highs of 23, 24 degrees Celsius. More around high teens where we have that cloud, but once the main band pushes its way through, there will be some sunny spells emerging for Northern Ireland and particularly eastern Scotland as we do head later on in the afternoon and the evening. Our next area of rain, though, is going to be steadily moving its way into western Scotland as we head into the overnight period. This one coming with a slightly freshening breeze, a brisk around some coastal regions, and it will eventually turn heavy over some of the hills and the mountains across northwestern Scotland. Everywhere else, though, should stay largely dry tonight with some clear spells. A few mist and fog patches forming, particularly across the south and the west, but otherwise fairly mild with temperatures holding up around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. The rain will be on and off throughout the day on Monday for northwestern Scotland, so quite damp here, and again still with that brisk wind around at times. But elsewhere it will be a fairly pleasant start to the new working week, some sunny spells emerging for most of us, and temperatures actually beginning to climb up a little bit more. So now seeing the chances of 26 degrees Celsius in the southeast and even 22, 20 for central eastern areas of Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. It's a trend that's going to continue throughout this week. The sunshine will become increasingly prolonged and temperatures are going to climb even further. Bye-bye.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Now, in a major U-turn, the Prime Minister has announced a national inquiry into grooming gangs. It's in response to Baroness Casey's recommendation in the national audit into the scandal due to be published this Wednesday, I believe. The Conservatives and Reform are now demanding Keir Starmer apologise for initially rejecting the move months ago, only allowing 5 councils to set up their own investigations. Joining us now is Head of Domestic Policy at Pictou House, Jacob Williams. Jacob, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Jacob, what do you make of this U-turn?
I think it's quite astonishing that it has taken Sir Keir Starmer so long to reach this decision. We, as many others have been calling for this full national inquiry for many, many months. The totally inadequate previous reports that were done that looked at everything remotely related to sexual abuse over the last 50 years were never an excuse not to hold a new inquiry. We knew from local inquiries that there was at least evidence of wrongdoing and cover-ups and misconduct by many people. So it has been a terrible shame and a disgrace that it's taken Labour so long, but we are very glad it's now happened. We hope this will give the victims and everyone who wants justice at least some semblance of hope.
The problem with these inquiries, Jacob, we've heard they go on for years. We have plenty of experience of inquiries going on for years. Sort of like, the Grenfell Tower one, for example, the victims there still do not have justice. How do we ensure that this gets to the point, gets there quickly, and the girls, thousands of them involved in this, get justice?
Well, I think there has to be accountability at every stage of the process of setting the terms and designing the framework for this inquiry. There has to be a lot of pressure, I think, placed on the government, because we do know there are councillors in the Labour Party and indeed in other parties up and down the country and other people in public roles who will be afraid of what this report might reveal. There has to be pressure placed on the government to ensure honesty and that the report is focused on exactly what actually needs to be uncovered.
Yeah, a lot of very nervous people. Jacob, thank you very much for joining us. That's Head of Domestic Policy at Pictou House, Jacob Williams. Thank you very much for that. OK, well, if you want some good news and you're lucky enough to be escaping on a holiday to get away from it all, here's the forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations for you.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If it's heat you're after, then the Mediterranean is the place to be over this forthcoming week. We are going to be seeing temperatures climb over the next few days. Worth noting that that heat could spark off a few showers and thunderstorms in places, but generally there will be plentiful amounts of sunshine for many of these countries if you are heading out. The peak of the heat likely to be on Wednesday at this point, for inland areas in particular, seeing 35 to 40 degrees Celsius.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Right, OK, Gloria De Piero is back with a fascinating interview speaking to Labour MP Jessa Sato, who is putting an amendment forward next week to change laws around online pornography. And about time too. You can watch the full interview with Gloria Meets on gbnews.com, but here is the highlights.
44-year-old Jessica Sato, the Labour Member of Parliament for Lowestoft, elected almost exactly a year ago. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we're going to talk today about the changes that you are trying to make. You're taking them to Parliament next week, and it's about the nature of online pornography. Tell me what you're going to do next week, how you're going to try and propose to change the law. What do you want to stop?
Well, we know that online pornography has become a vector for violence against women and girls. This isn't the sort of pornography that people might have been used to in the 1980s. We're talking about extreme violent acts, degrading acts against women in pornography. And in particular, the thing that I'm trying to change is that choking in pornography is legal online, but it is illegal offline. So if you were to go to a sex shop and buy a pornography DVD, a bit old-fashioned, you wouldn't be able to watch very violent acts of choking of women. And I'm trying to make sure that the same applies online so that we can really stop this huge avalanche of violence towards women and girls.
And I've looked at the proposals that you're seeking to make progress on next week. Also, you're talking about very big fines, custodial sentences, just explain those. If anybody is in breach, if they do show, any of these companies do show the choking or suffocating of a woman, what would happen to them if they breach the law, if you got the law changed and then they breached it?
So, obviously, I'm hoping that the government will look at my change that I'm putting forward next week in Parliament positively. If they were to take that forward and make it the law, then what would happen is that porn companies would be in breach of the law if they shared videos of choking. That would give Ofcom, they are the regulator through the Online Safety Act, the powers to have really big fines or in some cases start criminal proceedings. So I'm just asking for this particular content category, choking in particular, to be part of the Online Safety Act and for Ofcom to act if porn companies don't then take this stuff off their sites.
Why is this such a priority campaign for you?
Well, I guess it started a long time ago when I was a trustee of a charity called Brook. It's a young person's sexual health charity, and this would have been over 20 years ago, when pornography online wasn't quite as virulent as it is now. But I remember one of our helpline advisors talking us through some of the cases that had called through. And a young girl had rung up and said that her boyfriend said that she was a freak because she didn't have any hair down there. And I remember thinking at the time, gosh, how do you end up thinking that that's like unnatural rather than natural?
Yeah.
And it was due to the fact that so many young people were looking at pornography as a way of understanding sex and relationships. That was 20 years ago, and it's got a lot worse now. And when I worked for children's charity Bernardo's, which was my job before I got into Parliament, we had a number of what were called harmful sexual behaviour services. And they were seeing younger and younger kids, like 7, 8, 9-year-olds, coming into their services addicted to watching pornography. There was one child who, when she was asked her favourite thing, she said it was prawn, and the teacher worked out it meant porn. And so that's sort of, more recently how I started to understand this just absolute epidemic, which is impacting deeply on our children. Now, I'm really glad that the Online Safety Act that was introduced by the previous government is introducing age verification. So that means that if you are under 18, from July, fingers crossed if it all works, children won't be able to see this very, very harmful content. But I think it needs to go further, because the actual content that adults are seeing, and frankly, sometimes children will maybe still be able to share and see, it is so insidious. And we know that it has led to a huge increase in, for example, choking being used in everyday relationships. So about 40% of men say that they have choked a woman during sex, and similar numbers of women say that they have as well. But also this is leading to things like spitting, slapping, all things that actually many women say they don't want, they don't consent to, so technically that's criminal. And choking is never, ever safe. There's no safe way to do this. And there's some medical evidence now that women who are being choked time and time again during sex are suffering brain damage. We know from sexual assault referral centres that many of the victims who come in will have been choked without their consent. In some cases, that's leading them to go to A&E. It's leading them to have dizzy spells and to lose memory and so forth. This is actually a very, very harmful act. And so from my perspective, it's about time that we saw this as both an issue to do with criminal justice. It's about protecting women against violence. And of course, we've got a target as a government to halve violence against women and girls. But it's also a public health issue. And we know that actually many men say that they're addicted to porn and they don't want to be, because it operates on your brain. It's something that you sort of fall into a
Some
sort
people
of
might just think, can you just stop watching it then? If you know it's a problem, can you just don't go there? Is that too simplistic?
Well, I mean, actually, it is. I mean, we wouldn't say the same if you were addicted to alcohol or drugs or smoking, or, you'd create systems, wouldn't you, of smoking cessation and AA and so forth. With pornography, we know that actually the centres that work with those who are addicted are just getting more and more and more people self-referring. And the reason why it's really hard to give up is because actually it's just everywhere. It's completely normalised. During COVID, I think Pornhub said that there was 50% of men every week were watching porn regularly. Now, I think that has dropped, but it's a regular around 40% of men every single week will watch pornography.
But is watching... I'm struggling to find the right word. Sort of mainstream, not non-violent, consensual pornography. Do you have a problem with that?
I don't have any problem with that at all, and I'm certainly not here to be a moralist. What I'm really concerned about is the damaging impact it has in the real lives of women and girls in relationships. But I'm also very worried about children too. So we know that child sexual abuse material has absolutely spiralled out of control on the internet. And what we're finding is that many men who go on to develop an interest in children, so illegal child sexual abuse material online or obviously contact offline, often start by watching online pornography and developing an interest in the teen strand, which is ubiquitous. It's the #1 searched for term on pornography channels. And we are talking about very, very young-looking adult actors. We don't know whether they're over 18. The porn companies say they are, but there's no way of proving it.
What would you do about that?
Well, that's one of the other amendments that I have down that I hope the government might accept next week, which is that porn companies have to prove that every single person who is engaged in the pornographic acts is over 18, so that we absolutely stop what is child pornography appearing on these channels. Sometimes this teen material where they dress up as children, pigtails, homework, they call them daddy, look, I just think that's disgusting. I think most of your viewers will go, well, that's just pretending to be paedophilic material. Like, how is that legal? It's not legal offline. We shouldn't allow it to be legal online. So that's another thing that I'm trying to tackle, because we need to stop this gateway. The pornography is acting like a gateway for often men who've got no sexual interest in children, but who develop it over watching so much of this material that they get desensitised to it, and then they want to find something harder. A lot of the perpetrators of child sexual abuse who've been interviewed have said that their journey started with legal online pornography, and they just, clicked on a pop-up that was offering them something that was darker and illegal.
OK, you can watch the full Gloria Meets interview on GBNews.com. Now, more breaking news for you. In the last few minutes, Donald Trump has posted the following on his Trust Social. Truth Social even. Iran and Israel should make a deal and will make a deal, just like I got India and Pakistan to make in that case, by using trade, capital letters, his words, with the United States to bring reason, cohesion and sanity into the talks, with two excellent leaders who were able to quickly make a decision and stop. Also, during my first term, Serbia and Kosovo were going at it hot and heavy, as they have for many decades, and this long conflict was all ready to break out into war. I stopped it. Another case is Egypt and Ethiopia and their fight over a massive dam that is having an effect on the magnificent Nile River. There is peace, at least for now, because of my intervention, and it will stay that way. Likewise, we'll have peace soon between Israel and Iran. Wow, strong words there from Donald Trump. Well, all for me to say now. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciated your company. Happy Father's Day. I've been Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Don't go anywhere, though, because next is Nana Raquia with another cracking show for you.
Yes, thank you, Dawn. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, including my own. But look, we've got a big show for you. Are we doing enough to support Israel? Where should we be? Should we sit on the fence, or do we need to get involved in this particular conflict? How will it fare? Then, do you trust Sir Keir Starmer's judgment? He's U-turning again. Look, there's nothing wrong with a U-turn, but if it's what you're known for, Captain Flip-Flop, then surely, do you trust him? Do you think his judgment is any good at all? Some brilliant guests as well, an exceptional panel. Stay with me. All of that is on the way after the weather.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a very good afternoon to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Over the next few days, many of us will be seeing fine and dry conditions overall, and that is courtesy of an area of high pressure that is building in from the Azores and will be gradually moving across many areas of the UK. For the time being, there are a few weather fronts just moving across the north, and they've been providing some light outbreaks of rain. For Northern Ireland, England and Wales, though, they'll be petering out this evening, and so tonight will be largely dry with some clear spells, a few mist and fog patches. But there'll be more rain arriving into northwestern Scotland during the second half of the night, and that could turn heavy over the hills. A mild night nonetheless, temperatures holding up around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. As we move into the new working week, it is going to be northern and western areas of Scotland that are the wettest. The heaviest of the rain will be first thing in the morning. It will tend to ease off a little bit throughout the day, but it's still going to be a fairly grey and damp day to come here. Quite a brisk breeze around the coast and the mountains. The bulk of the rain should avoid Northern Ireland, but I can't rule out that the odd spot stretches into western counties and it will be cloudier here. For England and Wales, though, there'll be a decent amount of sunshine right from the get-go on Monday morning, and that will continue throughout the day. Some fair weather cloud will bubble up and it could turn hazy at times, particularly across the far south of England, but nonetheless it'll be staying dry, fine and pleasant. The temperatures will be up by a good few degrees tomorrow compared to the values we're seeing today. So we'll be climbing towards the mid-20s of Celsius across southeastern areas of England. But 22 degrees is possible for Northern Ireland, parts of central and eastern Scotland where it's driest, more around mid-teens for the northwest of Scotland where we do have that rain continuing to push its way through. And the winds will strengthen into Monday evening and overnight, potentially reaching gale strength for a time. So potential for further cloud and rain across the northwest first thing on Tuesday, but the trend is for things to generally turn more settled overall and temperatures to continue climbing. Bye-bye.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash. So make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it is yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. I think we'll make it. Joining me for the next few hours, journalist and broadcaster Ingrid Tarrant, and also political commentator Jonathan Liss. Coming up in my niggle, I'll be taking on the government while wasting many months, and finally they've announced a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal.
To make sure you're doing these things properly, there are lots of sensitive information, sensitive cases across the country. That process has now concluded. The report has been written by Baroness Casey, and on the basis of that, a national inquiry will now follow.
Yeah, it's a bit of a change of tune from January, where Sir Keir Starmer said this.
Politicians